Hello, 'tis I. Do I look a little worse for wear? Maybe. I've been sick for 10 days. I'm just coming out of, I don't know, they're calling it a viral cough because all the flu and COVID tests came back negative, but it is a very nasty cough and it's there and it doesn't want to leave me alone. And I'm also deaf right now in my left ear because I have a very bad ear infection caused by the excess amount of coughing that has occurred in these past 10 days. So please treat your coughs seriously. They may cause ear infections. So, sorry, I felt a sneeze coming on. I am sitting before you today, once again, in my bedroom because that seems to be the standard for when we do any type of vlogs. They start out in my bedroom, but you know, privacy, you get better audio, hopefully. So, we're good, right? We're good. Now, I have a very important thing to say. In a previous video, I posed the question, would you rather crochet a pair of overalls or sew a pair of overalls? Now, as I am recording this before the overall video goes live, I do not know your answers, but, well, excuse me, but in post-editing, we will add your answers here. As you know, I'm gonna answer that question myself, but I'm not in a mood, so to speak, to actually crochet a pair of overalls, like completely. So we're gonna do some flipping, some thrift flipping. Again, part of the Crochet Thrift Flip series. You have seen me flip a shirt, you have seen me flip a pinafore, and now we're gonna be crocheting a pinafore, at least the top half. Now, this all began because mom gifted me a skirt that I seriously need some crochet hacking. It is an A-line denim skirt, very soft denim. I really like it, but it is big on the waist, tight on the hips, so we're gonna need to hack that. And that led down the process of, wait a minute, I already have a corduroy denim skirt that is big on me. Can we make that into a pinafore? And you guys know, I'll leave a link to the video of the pinafore that I flipped if you haven't seen it, but here we are. Sorry, I felt a coughing fit coming on, so I had to pause. Also, it was time for one of my medicines. Where were we? Right, so I showed you the pinafore, and this is the corduroy. Now, this technically is a thrift flip because I bought this. I think this is Loft. I got it off of ThredUp, which is one of my favorite places to browse, especially when they partner with Rachel Maxey, and she does like, these are my favorites, shop these styles kind of thing. I just really like it. Incidentally, that's how I ended up with this pinafore here that is blowing out the camera, but I'm gonna show it anyway. So I took this to my trip on my trip to Japan. I bought it specifically for that. And it was big. It was a 29-inch waist, but for some reason it was a very large 29-inch waist. So I actually did this little trick where you insert the elastic and took that in a little bit. And I actually did some darts on the sides to tuck it in more. So I will be taking those out because when we take those out, the width of the skirt is the same as the width of the waist of this pinafore. So I get ideas. I get ideas. Let me show you. This is the fit of the corduroy skirt, post elastic and darts. And okay, so the skirt is not as wide as the pinafore, but it's pretty close-ish, you know, if 4 inches less is close, but you know, you guys get the idea. It'll be a good, comfortable pinafore. At least that's what we're hoping for. So what we're going to be doing today is ripping the seams that I did and taking out the elastic and that, measuring and seeing how much we have to crochet. Possibly we might start with the crochet today, but no guarantees on that front though, that we start with the crochet today, because I actually leave for Maryland today's Wednesday. So on Friday, this Friday, we leave for Maryland, so this project will be going on pause. I just wanted to start it before we actually left. Let's get to it. So it's not perfect. I think this is about 4 inches less wide. We'll measure to make sure. So I will adjust the sides to come in 4 inches more, but I still want to crochet the same amount here and then curl upwards to the straps. So in keeping with similar measurements for the armhole depth and the straps, we're gonna do something Clarissa doesn't usually do, and that is draw. We're going to draw this out so we can have a better idea of the parts that need to be crocheted and how big they need to be. Okay, so the entire thing from buttons to skirt will be 12 inches, and then it'll be 8.5 inches before we start the armhole depth, and the skirt is 16 inches wide. So let's see how we break this down. Okay, so these are the final measurements. We have, like I said, 16 inches for the skirt that is measured flat. So the circumference will be 32 inches. The back should be 13 inches of total length in the fabric, as opposed to the 12 inches of the front. And then the straps would be 6 inches flat. So that accounts for the tab in the front and then the 6-inch strap that goes from the back to the front. Because of the construction, you know, the fact that we have a button and a zipper right on the front, we're gonna have to work the front in panels, just like this pinafore, but the back can just be one solid panel of crochet. As for stitches, I don't know. Let's see what looks good. From crocheting the sample, as you saw, I used the 4mm hook and the 4.5mm hook to see which gauge I liked better, and I think I'm gonna go with the 4mm hook. It's a bit splitty, but I do like the fact that it gapes less, so we're gonna go with that. To start, I'm gonna do foundation half double crochet stitches so that it's nice and sturdy for when we sew it to the inside of the band, and then I'm gonna move on to double crochet stitches. So I'm holding up my foundation half double crochet stitches, stretching them, like really just laying them flatter, and 26 stitches equals approximately 7.5 inches. I'm also going to lay this against the skirt so that I can see that if I pin it, I have about 1.5 inch of button bands to do. I'm cool with that. Instead of working double crochet stitches, we are going to work extended half double crochet stitches. To do that, we are going to yarn over, insert our hook into the stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through that first loop, and then yarn over, pull through the 3 remaining loops. Again, we yarn over, insert our hook into the next stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through that first loop on the hook. We have 3 loops. Now we yarn over and pull through the 3 remaining loops. And this is the extended half double crochet stitch, and that is what I'm going to be working in every single stitch until we reach a total of 8.5 inches, or as close to 8.5 inches as we can get. We are back, and as you saw, I did a brief steaming of our swatch. Now, when we started, I showed you guys how I measured my foundation chain, or in this case, I should say my foundation stitches. Now, that measured 7.5 inches. Over the course of crocheting with extended half double crochet stitches and then steaming it lightly, our swatch now measures 7 inches. So that means that if I do the stitch count of 26, one of my front panel bands will measure 7 inches, which leaves us 1 inch to achieve that 8-inch measurement for our button band. I think a 1-inch button band is okay. I don't think that width bothers me too much, so we're gonna go with it. But now that we're talking about swatches, I just want to give you a couple of tips when you're doing gauge swatches. I always like to block my swatches. Not all patterns ask you to do so, to block your swatch, but I think it's very important because it gives us a good idea of how the fabric is going to behave, which is why I like to make a swatch that's bigger than what I am going to be measuring. So typically we measure our gauge in 4x4, so that is 4 inches of width, 4 inches of height, or 10 centimeters. But I always recommend to make your swatch bigger than that, because then that gives you a better idea of how your tension is shifting, how the fabric is going to behave, and it's just truer because anytime that we pick up our hooks, our gauge can change. I've talked about this in a previous video, but I just wanted to reiterate that swatching is important, and making your swatch bigger than 4 inches is also very important. So now that I know that I'm gonna need to have a button band of 1 inch, and I am okay with that decision, I'm gonna go ahead and just keep crocheting, and I will meet you back here when it's time to decrease for the armscye, or the armhole. Now that we've entered the crochet stretch, it is time for some hot tea, and of course to catch up on some YouTube videos. Once I reached those 8 inches, it was time to start the decreases. Now we're only going to be decreasing on one side of our panel, and that is the side that is going to be towards our armhole area. So in order to decrease, I am going to actually decrease 2 stitches in one row and then no stitches in the next row. This is how it's all matching up to the skirt and to the actual jean pinafore. So I actually have to crochet about 1.5 inches of a button band, but we are matching that armhole. In the last decrease row, I'm actually going to stop doing my extended half double crochets 4 stitches from the end of the row, and I'm going to do 1 half double crochet in the next 2 stitches. Sorry, my yarn keeps splitting. So again, 1 half double crochet in the next 2 stitches. This is my first, and here is my second half double crochet. In the last 2 remaining stitches of the row, I'm going to do a single crochet, and this kind of like brings the curve down a little bit more. And also, because we're going to be joining at the sides, I want a neat join. So I'm actually going to work single crochet stitches down the decrease edge of my panel. And after completing the single crochets on the side of the panel, this is what we have. Let's get cozy and start our second panel. The day's not over yet, but my wrist is really starting to hurt. It's actually the first time I've sat down to crochet since I got sick. So we finished one panel. This is the right panel, and I'm on row 11 of the left panel. So I'm gonna stop here for now. I'm gonna go crochet on my sister's birthday gift, and maybe I'll pick it back later tonight, but good morning. Yes, I am still in my pajamas. It is 11 a.m., but I've been baking since I got up today because tomorrow we leave for our road trip. So last night I actually did pick up the crochet and I finished the other panel. Well, almost finished. I am just missing to do the single crochet border on the decrease side, and then, better angle, and then we will be all done with the front panel. We'll check back in, see if we did any crochet. It's time for an update. We got back from Maryland on Wednesday, so that means that yesterday I spent most of my crochet days working on this back panel for the Pinafore. I actually had to rip back all the decreases I had done because I forgot that I had to decrease four stitches in every row to get like that steep arm size. So that's what we're doing here, and we're almost done with the back panel. After that, it'll be time to seam and do button bands. But before we do any of that, let's clear the desk, some iced tea, and by the way, that headband will be a tutorial I'm very excited to share. Now for the back, we are doing the strap that's gonna, come over to join in the front. That strap is going to be 10 inches long, and I am using 5 single crochets for the width. Now, of course, before we actually crochet all of those 10 inches, I'm going to stop 2 rows before to make a hole to place our button in. Here's the completed back panel. Now let's attach all this to the skirt and see how it's looking. Our back panel is inserted, and now I'm going to pin the 2 front panels in place so that we can. While I am going to pin the front panels to the skirt, I am going to whip stitch my sides first. Okay, I just want it kind of all tucked into the skirt so I have a better idea of how it's going to look. one final sip of tea and let's catch up. So yesterday, as you saw, I did all the sewing. Well, what I'm calling the first level of sewing, because I do plan to go back and sew the crochet here to the seam so that it doesn't fold like it's doing currently. And I started the front. I just pulled out all the stitches for this row, but I started the front strap. So today I'm hoping to finish the front straps for the left panel and the right panel, and then of course do the button band. But as you may see here, there's really no need for a button band. So I think I just need to get some smaller buttons, but I do need to do a button band on this panel. And that's what we're gonna do today. For the button band, I'm going to insert my hook into the base row. I'm going to grab some yarn and I'm going to chain one to secure. And after that, I am going to chain a total of 9 chains. And how I figured this was that basically I kept placing my chains and kind of seeing how they matched up to the button, whether or not they reached the end of the skirt. Once my chain was long enough, I did single crochets starting from the second chain from the hook. So I did a total of 8 single crochets. And the tricky bit of this I'm not really doing a rib because I'm not working in the back loop only, but it's the same method of doing a rib. The tricky thing that some people find is how to connect it. And how we connect this strip of single crochets is that we are actually going to go into the side of our work. So we'll call it the raw edge of our work, and we are going to slip stitch into that raw edge. How many slip stitches you do is really up to you, but I find that alternating between doing 2 slip stitches and 3 slip stitches gives me a good rib in this case, because I don't really want to shrink my work. I want my work to be nice and even. Contrary, if it was a pair of socks, then you would want to shrink your work. Your rib would bring it in. But anyway, here I am slip stitching to that raw edge, and I'm doing 2 slip stitches to begin with. And then we are going to chain 1 and we're going to turn our work, and we are going to work our way up the single crochets again, and we're going to work 1 single crochet in each stitch. So for the rib, I tend to call this my up row, and then once we finish the up row, we're going to do a down row, and the down row is what we connect back into the raw edge. So again, here we chain 1 and turn, and now we are going to work down our single crochets, and this is what we're going to connect to the raw edge or the body of our panel in this case. We are slip stitching to the raw edge or the body here to connect, and now I'm going to do 3 slip stitches because, like I told you, I like to alternate. And these are the steps that I'm going to be completing to work my panel button band. I'm sewing my button to the short tabs that are on the front panel, and these tabs should be near to your armhole, not near to the neckline. And I am going to sew the button here. After sewing the buttons, I'm going to weave in all ends and of course find and sew some buttons to the front panel. And with that, our half crochet pinafore thrift flip is complete. let's wrap up this crochet thrift flip. I am so happy with how this turned out. Honestly, I think it's great when you have an item that you want to recreate in crochet because it allows you to play a lot with construction, with what techniques you're going to use, what stitches you're going to use, and it just makes it really fun. Is this thrift flip 100% complete? No. As you can tell from the reveal and from right now, there are no buttons because I haven't found buttons that I actually like. I love the buttons that I use for the straps of the Pinafore. I absolutely love those. But I didn't want the buttons that went down the middle to be as big as these on top. I wanted them to be just a smidge smaller than the one that actually ties the waist in together. As I was saying, I wanted to find buttons that were slightly smaller than the ones that I use for the straps, probably comparative in size to the one that's actually used for the waist, that the skirt came with. Overall, my verdict is 8 out of 10. I would definitely do this again, but I think I would have better care with the width of my panels. The front panels are okay. The back panel might be a little bit too big, but I also feel that I couldn't have made it any smaller without actually making the Pinafore too tight to use with clothes under it. So I'm not too gonna nitpick about that. Other things that I need to fix ASAP is this right here. I think I'm gonna close the arm side or the armhole. I'm gonna close it a little bit more on both sides. Actually, I think this left side is a little bit looser. You can't really tell actually because this shirt is smidge oversized, so it's actually perfect for this type of garment. Would I do this again? Definitely. It was fun. I think overall probably took me 10 or more hours to crochet this, and it is a garment that I feel that I am going to be using a lot. In terms of weight, it is very, top heavy. The crochet part of it is definitely heavier than the corduroy part of it, when it's all put together. But like I said, it was a fun make, and I feel that you can also learn a lot about construction when you break things down into panels and what stitches you can use to create the shapes that you want to create. With that being said, we only have one more thing to answer. Would you rather crochet a pair of overalls or sew a pair of overalls? I think that I had more fun crocheting them, but sewing overalls is definitely quicker. So I guess the jury's out. I'm not going to give a 100% verdict. I think it really depends what you're comfortable with and how much fun you want to have. Not that I didn't have fun sewing. I learned new things about my sewing machine. And it was definitely fun figuring out the construction of the overalls, but I don't know, I still feel that overall I had more fun crocheting this Pinafore. With that, the only other thing that I have to share with you is that I want to thank you for spending a little bit of crafty time with me this week and always being up for coming along on my crazy crafty crochet journeys. So I want to hear what you guys think about this. Would you be willing to try to crochet a Pinafore if it's this way? Would you still think it was a little bit too warm, a little bit too heavy for where you live? I think this could work really well if you live in a very cold place. If you crochet it with worsted weight wool, it would be a very warm garment and it would serve as a great outer layer. I don't think I have any other thoughts to share with you on this Pinafore. I'll definitely update you on Instagram and in my newsletter about the buttons that I choose to actually complete this Pinafore with. And if you like this video, you can give it a thumbs up. If you like the Crochet Cakes community, then you will find a link to our Discord server in the description box below. And of course, if you like this video and would like to subscribe to the channel, then we do a lot of crafty stuff in this channel. And next up, we have a crochet tutorial that will be headed your way. Something quick, palette cleanser, and possibly a gift guide. Once again, thank you so much for joining me here today, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!